Cool, I will. Thanks a lot.
And it's a big difference.
My name is Joe Solowiejczyk. I'm a diabetes nurse and a family therapist, and I work full-time for LifeScan. I go around the country doing workshops and presentations on family dynamics and diabetes management, and I'm on the faculty here at Children with Diabetes, as well as at the Johnson & Johnson Diabetes Institute. I won't exactly say I'm celebrating, but I've been living with having type 1 diabetes. This year will be 47 years. And ask me if I like it.
Do you like it?
No, I hate it. And I love saying I hate it. It stinks. There's not one morning, I can promise you, in the last 47 years that I got up and said, yippee, I can't wait to take care of myself. Wow, I got to check my blood sugar. And then, woo, count carbs. And, well, and if it's feeling like a little slow, I get to bolus. And then after that, I get to eat the carbs. And then if I'm feeling a little sad, like maybe there's nothing not to do left, I get to check again an hour and a half afterwards to see if I bolus correctly. And then if I'm like hitting the depths of depression because we're finished, no, lunch is around the corner. I don't think it takes rocket science to manage diabetes. I think it takes a lot of courage and determination, and I'm exhausted. I cannot wait for the cure. And I know what I'm doing when they find it. I'm going to sit on a park bench and stare at the sky for 3 weeks. And I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. When I first got diagnosed, the needles were 3/4 of an inch long stainless steel hypodermics. I remember my mother sharpening the needles on the edge of a whetstone on Friday afternoons because you use the same needle and the same syringe. It was a glass syringe for the whole week. And the shots on Friday night hurt much less than the shots on Friday morning because you had used that same needle all week long. And it was more like, as opposed to shots, it was more like harpooning. You know what I mean? It's like my mother would be at one end of the room and I would be at the other, sort of ready to receive. And they hurt. I look at those needles today and I cannot believe that I allowed anybody to give me one of those. They are primitive. They look like harpoons. And there was no blood sugar testing. And when I say that, the kids a lot of times, they say, oh, I wish that I had been around and had diabetes when you got it because I hate this blood sugar testing. I said, dude, you can't even remember to stick your silly little machine in your book bag and your parents are always thinking about, imagine what it would be like to have to take a test tube and a Bunsen burner. Oh, and in those days there was no diet soda. Well, there was. There were 3 flavors, bad, bad, and very bad. It was no cal, and it had this like photograph, a little image drawing thing of this sort of svelte like woman with a bouffant hairdo in the front of it, you know? And the black raspberry tasted exactly like the cola, tasted exactly like the ginger ale. When they came out with Tab and Fresca, which to me was like a cure of some sorts because I craved to have regular soda. When they came out with Tab and Fresca, I thought, oh, now I can believe that God parted the Red Seas for the Israelites. You know what I mean? Miracles are possible. I tell you, the thing that's interesting for me is that despite the fact of all of these sort of technological advances and things that we sort of, you know, now we have shorter needles, sharper needles, disposable needles, and we have pumps that talk to machines and all this kind of stuff. And I've calculated in my 48 years that I've taken 88,623 injections. Watch this. This is what I consider magic. No leaks. How many of you guys are new, like within the last year, to the Diabetes Club? All right, I just want to make a comment, a couple of comments to you right from the get-go. Your children will be able to do whatever they want to do. They'll never be more sick than anybody else. As long as they take care of their diabetes, they can do whatever they want. And kids with type 1 diabetes who are taking care of themselves can walk around barefoot. I just want to like set the record straight. Yes, The barefoot thing is a type 2 thing. It is not a type 1 thing. If you're taking care of yourself and you can feel your feet, if you are a family of glass walkers, you know, where you make your money walking on glass and then people give money because they're amazed at it, you know, you can continue to do it and include your child with diabetes as long as their numbers are okay. If your numbers are okay and you're in target zone at least 80% of the time for age-appropriate levels, then your kids can do whatever they want. They can break a leg, they can break a nose, they can get cut. They will heal just as well as everybody else. They will grow to be the same as anybody else as long as their diabetes is under control. That's the sort of qualifier. And they will never have to be in the hospital again. They will grow to their full potential. They will be able to have kids. They will be able to have successful pregnancies. There's nothing that they can't do. And there are enough role models on the planet today. My particular one of them is sitting in the room. His name is Sebastian. Maybe he could raise his hand for a second. He has climbed Mount Everest with diabetes. And he's making a face like, oh, no big deal. But I got to tell you something, it's a big deal. Like, can you imagine like trying to like think about whether or not you have enough oxygen to go into the death zone, as well as remember if you brought your strips or not? You know how many times we leave the house, right? You think you packed everything, and then you get into the car and you're halfway to where you want to get to, and you go, oh, I put the wrong vial in here. I put the empty vial instead of the new vial, right? Imagine him getting to the top and going, oh, I forgot my blood sugar strips. Oh, my glucose tablets are at Camp 1. Anyway, I think if you're intelligent and a control freak as a parent, as an adult, this disease will be a spiritual growth experience. All right? Any control freaks in the room? All right, cool. It's worse if one of you is a control freak and the other's a little looser. Because you know what happens in that situation? The one who's the control freak is going, and it's usually the woman who's a little bit more controlling. I don't know why that is, but it just is, right? It's the mother who's a little bit more controlling, and the father's a little, oh, it'll be okay, you know what I mean? You know, and the mother's thinking like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? The thing is that the dance that you guys do as couples, as mother and father, husband and wife, has everything to do with what your child's A1C will be a year down the road. They did a research project at Children's Hospital in 24 years ago, where they looked at 50 families at the time of diagnosis. It was a pilot study, and they were looking at what things about a family would impact a child's hemoglobin A1C down the road. What do you think was the most statistically significant predictor of what a kid's A1C would be a year down the road? Yes?
Mama ain't happy, no one's happy.
Awesome! That is exactly it. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. What they looked at and what they found was that the mother's subjective sense of how supported she felt as a wife, a woman, and a mother in that family was the most significant predictor of what a child's hemoglobin A1C would be a year down the road. It's not that it's the mother's fault. It's just that the mother and how she feels subjectively, as supported or not, is a good indicator of what's going on in the family. The second most statistically significant predictor was the diabetes nurse educator's rating of how easy or difficult it was to schedule whole family educational sessions at the time of diagnosis. Meaning that it didn't have so much to do with how rich or how poor you were, although at exaggerated extremes of very poor and very rich, I think there are some problems. Meaning very wealthy, just anecdotally for me, it seems that very wealthy people tend to think that their money and power can insulate them from the pain. And very poor people who are having trouble putting food on the table have a hard time sort of keeping diabetes as a top priority if you're so worried about keeping things together financially and economically. But for most of us in the middle, it had nothing to do with that. And it had nothing to do with how smart or how dumb you are. Actually, I think if you're dumb and committed, you have a much better chance of doing diabetes well than if you're smart and neurotic. It takes, I think what that stuff said was that it takes a certain amount of ability on the family's part to suit up and show up. And that those two indicators for me are a thing that I have used over the last 20-something years that have helped me work with kids and families and help them sort of come to terms with stuff. At the end of the day, it is about how you work as a family. And the other point that I'm going to make is that how you parent will have everything to do with how your kid's A1C is. How many of you have kids who are teenagers? Good. How many of you have kids who are going to be teenagers? Good, so we're going to talk about teenagers. There are 3 things that you need to know about teens, and these things, if you remember this, I think you'll be in good shape. Number 1, taking care of yourself is absolutely non-negotiable. To ask a child how many blood sugars you would like to do is a silly question. You have to do a certain amount of blood sugars. If you have type 1 diabetes, you have to do at least 4 a day. You have to write the numbers down. Well, why do you have to write the numbers down? The kids say to me, "You're such a dinosaur, Joe." You know, it's like, "Well, I know that your mother used to sharpen the needles on a whetstone, but I have a meter and a pump that has a memory." I said, "Dude, your pump and your meter don't have diabetes. The only way that you're going to remember this thing is if you write it down. If you don't write it down, it's not yours." You may not have to write it down for every day in the 3 months between visits, but you need to write some of this stuff down so that you own it and that it becomes yours. This is how your kids will take it on, by writing this stuff down. The goal of all of us educators and doctors and nurses and dietitians is to help you unfold into the rest of your lives and to make sure that if your children want to leave home, they can leave and that you'll feel secure in the knowledge that they're doing okay. Whether it's 18 months old or 15 years old, that's the goal, to leave home eventually. No bolusing after you eat. You can bolus after you eat if you're 5 years old, 4 years old, 2 years old. But physiologically, it doesn't make sense. You can knock the A1C down by several points if your kids are bolusing before they eat. You know, the kids say, "Oh, I say, how come you don't bolus before you eat?" They go, "Oh, I forgot." I said, "Dude, that sounds a little funny to me." It's like, you can remember 40,000 cell phone numbers of your friends and know it all by heart and know where every single one of them is during the day, but you forget to bolus. I think that's not a hard drive problem. I think it's a priority problem. You do not have to like it. You just have to do it. That's number 2. I bet all of you are hoping that your kids are going to come out of this conference like this and go like this: "Mom, Dad, I just wanted to let you know that I had a spiritual epiphany at the Friends for Life conference, and I realized that I've been selfish and self-centered and irresponsible about the care or not care that I've given to my diabetes, and I just want you to know, and I've been unfair to my brother Timmy because I've taken a lot of attention away because at every meal you're always asking me what my blood sugar number is, and it's not about him, and it's always about me, and I want you to know, as part of that spiritual epiphany, I've realized how selfish and self-centered I've become, and I just want you to know that I'm going to pull myself up by the metaphysical bootstraps and absolutely start being more responsible. I realize that I've compromised my future health and wellness." If you're waiting for your team to say that, it ain't going to happen. That's in your little, like, virtual world, you know what I mean? That's in the world that you have as a dollhouse that sets things up. You know, like, that is not going to happen. The thing about teenagers with diabetes is I think they have 2 diseases, you know. The thing is, thank God, only one of them's chronic. The more difficult one goes away when they turn about 18, you know. So, no negotiating. Number 2, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. If you like it, you're nuts and you need medication. The Nike ad is totally profound, right? Just do it. It doesn't say, first like it, then do it. And number 3, and here's the most important one, is reframing non-compliance or non-adherence and mismanagement as any other misbehavior. The same way that you parent your kids in every other area of life, I would support you and encourage you to do the same thing with your kids who have diabetes, around the diabetes stuff. Kids are supposed to try and get away with stuff, and parents are supposed to not allow that to happen. This is called growth. separation, individuation, unfolding into your life and having a sense of boundaries, what's okay and what's not okay. What I'm saying to you is that if you can get your kids to do their homework and go to school and put their clothes on appropriately and clean their room, you can get your kids to do your blood sugars. And not making diabetes the center of your lives. Because you know who gets hurt when diabetes is the center of your lives? The kids who don't have diabetes. When Susie comes down in the morning and mom, what's the first question mom asks? Susie has diabetes. Yeah, what's your blood sugar? Did you check, you know? And when that question gets posed, I think brother Timmy, who's 14 years old, realizes yet again that here's another meal that's not going to be about me. It's another meal about pain. It's another meal about fear, anger, tension. Here, the whole thing gets ramped up again. I want to share with you guys just a little stuff about what I think is important for the young kids. It's important that they get an opportunity to meet with other kids who have diabetes so that they don't feel like they're the only ones. I think one of the most spiritually and physically and medically healing things that the kids can get and that you can get for your kids while they're here is a sense of they're in the room with a lot of other kids who have it. And they're looking at other kids and they're realizing that there's nothing to talk about. It's the healing is automatic. It works like magic cell phones or something like that. It like just happens. And I wouldn't sit or think about doing like, sitting down and going like, how are you feeling? You know what I mean? If your kid's not talking about how their diabetes is going, but they're smiling and they're doing well in school, let it go. All right? The thing I would want to just caution you about is make a distinction between your needs and their needs, right? You might need to hear more from them. I'm fine, I'm coping with it well, and I understand that this is serious, you know? How many of you would like to hear your kids say that? If okay, right. All right, fine. They may say that stuff, but the bottom line is what you want is to just make them happy and smiley and bouncing and doing their thing. And if they're doing that, you don't need to worry that, oh, something's lurking deep and down that's going to be a monster. You'll deal with whatever comes up when it comes up. You don't have to be looking for that stuff. And the conversations and the experiences should be spontaneous and fun. It's no surprise that I became a family therapist. And it's no surprise that I became a family therapist who's working in diabetes that has a thing about that it's important to talk about your feelings. The message I got when I was younger was that it wasn't okay to talk about the feelings. My parents taught me a lot, but one of the things that I got that was very difficult was that I learned sort of unconsciously that I wasn't supposed to talk about how much I didn't like it. That was the one thing that I didn't get. And it's taken me a long time to sort of realize that it's okay to say I don't like it. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. It just means that I don't like it. It took me years to understand that I could say I'm having a hard time and it wasn't a chip against my integrity, or that it didn't mean that I was being scored for not doing well. I schedule my diabetes depression days. I call my friends and I say, next week on Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., I'm going to be depressed about having diabetes, and I want you to call me every hour to tell me that I'm incredible. I call up to work the next day and I say, listen, I'm having a bad diabetes day, I'm not coming in. It took me a long time to acknowledge and embrace the fact that I could say I'm having a hard time and it wasn't a strike against me. I think we are most merciless on ourselves. There's no one as hard on us as ourselves about this stuff, because you're always pushing for the numbers and I could do it better. There's not one person who doesn't take care of themselves who doesn't know what they're doing. Every kid that I've met who's not taking care of themselves says to themselves before they go to bed, tomorrow I'm going to do better. I think you're a little nuts if you're doing well all the time. There's something nuts about that. This is like taking a test all the time and seeing if you pass. How many of you feel like do or die every time the blood sugar number comes up? That's why I love the number 100. I know there are no values that are better or worse, but I think I'm a genius when the 100 comes up. I call my friend Danny, I said, Danny, you're talking to a diabetes genius, I got 100. You know, 100 looks nice to me, it's perfect, you know. And I think for the younger kids, a lot of what we're talking about is have fun, do the stuff. As parents, you need to push yourselves to make sure that your kids have sleepovers. You need to push yourselves so that your kids go on school outings. You need to, and not be there all the time. You have to like work hard to get other people in your lives, up to speed in terms of managing it, but the more you can let go in those areas, the more you're going to foster a sense of appropriate growth and development and separation and individuation. The onset of diabetes has the potential to compromise that process. And what you want to do is spend your energy and efforts at pushing against that a little bit, working with it, but like making sure that things happen that other kids do. And do what you need to do. You can do it and have a smile and then go inside and break down. Not a problem, but just do that. That's really important for the younger kids and for the older kids as well. By the time they're teenagers, they should be doing most of this stuff by themselves with your supervision. It doesn't mean to check out as a parent. It means that you're a consulting supervisor. I think you can gradually work up to this stuff. I would say what things your dad and I, your mom and I have decided that you need to start taking on a little bit more responsibility. We want to give you one more responsibility. I'm just saying as they're getting up to the teenager thing, right? They say, which thing would you like to do? Would you like to do the finger stick thing and be in charge of that? Or would you like to do the shot thing or the infusion set? Give them a choice, because in diabetes there is no choice. So you want to offer as many choices as possible, but a structure for parameters that say, within this thing, we're expecting you to step up to the plate a little bit more. And it's okay for them to piss and moan all the way to the blood sugar machine. Right? It's like, I hate it. I do this a lot myself. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, check. I think RT every so often is totally excited. You know what RT is? RT, retail therapy. I think it's good every so often, like after I go to the doctor's office and I get my A1C and it's 6.2, I say, oh good, I'm gonna go buy a new shirt, you know, something like that. I think every so often that's good, but what you don't want is for the kid to have to do it in order to win the prize. You want your child to do it because they have to do it. And it's okay to have a meltdown every so often. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be depressed. That's what we do when we're faced up against something as frustrating as living with this stupid thing. So Susie's 16 years old. She comes into the office and she's not taking care of herself. She has her brother Timmy, 14 years old. She's getting A's and B's in school. She's on cheerleaders. She's got a lot of friends and all this kind of stuff, but her last A1C was 12. You know? So we sit down and mom and dad are there and I say, hi, how can I help you? And the mother usually says to me, we'd like you to tell Susie how important it is to take care of herself, right? Okay, cool, no problem. Susie, it is very important to take care of yourself. Was there anything else that you wanted me to help you with? So she's already getting that I'm maybe a little different and that she's not going to get the usual inspiring nurse educator sermon. You know what that is? Oh, sweetheart, you're so young, you're so intelligent, you have so much to live for, you really should be taking better care of yourself. They've heard it a zillion times. They'll give you your 7 minutes of inspirational sermon, and then on the way back to the parking lot, it's hell again. Most parents would like you to do that, and they believe that you have some magical, inspirational words or incantation that will give your kid a frontal lobotomy. It doesn't happen. The thing is, I turn to her and I say, Susie, what's the worst part about having diabetes? She goes, my mother. I say, can I ask you a question? Would you like me to help you get your mom off your back? She goes, yes, I can help, but it's going to make your life a little bit more difficult in some other areas. She says, not a problem. I say, okay, cool. I say, do you date? She goes, yes. I say, well, what's your curfew when you date? She goes, well, I have to be home by 11:30 if I'm out with my boyfriend. I say, what happens if you go over that time? She goes, well, I have to call and tell them that I'm making arrangements to get back home. So I say, cool. Let's say your boyfriend picks you up. You guys go out. You're on a date. You're having a great time. 11:30 comes and goes. No Susie, no boyfriend. 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, no Susie, no boyfriends. Whoa. At 2:30, your parents are out on the front steps. They've called the sheriff's office, and they are beside themselves, and they're calling all your friends and all this kind of stuff. And at 2:31, they see your boyfriend's car coming down the street. The only problem is the car's not driving in a straight line, and it runs over some bushes before it makes a wide turn and drives up the front lawn. You roll out of the car. You you're trying to find where the ground is, but you're a little too drunk to realize that you're already on it. Your boyfriend can't wait, he tears off backwards. My question to you is this: how many more times in this century would that ever happen? And she's laughing. And I said, did I say something funny? She goes, no, it would never happen. And if it did happen, it would never happen again. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I'd be dead. I said, well then, until your parents treat your misbehavior and diabetes the same way that they treat dating, where the rules are very clear, the expectations are very clear, the consequences are very clear, until they do that, you'll never be able to take care of your diabetes. This is how kids ask for help a lot of times. They're angry about this thing. They don't want to do it. This is switching it from it's her fault to this is a family responsibility. And the parents say, oh, well, what should we do? I say, you should punish her. And they're going, well, Joe, you know, we thought you were sensitive and nice and a little funny. Now we think you're a fascist pig. How can we punish her for having diabetes? And I say to them, you don't. You're punishing her or disciplining her for being irresponsible. Is it fun having diabetes? No. Is it extra work to have it? Absolutely. Does she have to do things that her peers and friends don't have to do? Yes. Is she an old soul because she realizes something about life that kids who don't have a chronic illness don't have to realize? Absolutely. Does she have to do it? Yes. When my grandfather passed away, there were 6 of us grandchildren. And we went to meet the executor of the will. And he came up to me and he goes, are you Joey? My grandfather called me Joey. I said, yes. He goes, your grandfather left you a little bit more than the other 5. And I said, wow, that's great. Why? And he goes, because he knew that you had diabetes and he thought that your life was more difficult. And he wanted to give you something a little in recognition of that. I said, no way, even Stephen, you know what I mean? It's like, no special privileges, you know, this kind of thing. He goes, listen, we're not executing the will today. It's been 2 weeks. You just go home and think about it, all right? So I ended up, we go home, come back in 2 weeks. He goes, did you think about it? I said, yeah. He goes, it's mine. It is unfair. There's nothing fun about it, and you have to do it. The punishment or the discipline is about the not doing it. It's not about and it's not for the result, it's for the behavior. If you have a kid who's not bolusing before lunch and comes home with a 400 blood sugar, that's punishable. It's punishable not for the 400, it's punishable for the missing the thing. So the parents, what they need to do is you set it up like a weekly report card. What do you think is the hardest part about getting your kids to do what they're supposed to do? Anyone have an answer? The hardest thing of getting your kids to, yes? Follow through on the parents, exactly. So they say, I say you need to punish her. Well, they say, well, how should we punish her? I say, I don't know. I'm not the punishment meister. That's your job. Just make sure it hurts. Look, if you're a 5-year-old and you're 15, but you're behaving like a 5-year-old, you don't get your cell phone. If you're a 15-year-old and you're behaving like a 5-year-old, you don't get your internet. 15-year-olds don't go to get their driving classes. That kind of stuff. It has to be connected to something, but you have to give them a choice. And why do you need to set it up like this? Because by giving them the options, they know what the consequences are for every action that they take. And whether they behave responsibly or irresponsibly, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they've gone through the decision process in a responsible way by you and your spouse providing the parameters for making a responsible decision. You weigh the pros against the cons. When she's at her locker and her friends are pulling at her and say, this time, let's go, she goes, should I or shouldn't I check? If I don't check and I get caught, this is what happens. If I do check, I'm okay. If I do check and I don't get caught, this is what will happen. All that process is a win-win. So I say, this is how you should run it. You should have a weekly thing where her responsibility is to keep a written record. You want to know what's going on? What's the first question that every parent asks their kid when they come down for breakfast? Did you check? If I were the kid, I would tell you to back off. I'd ask you if you paid your taxes yet. Can we talk about something other than diabetes? Can we talk about how did you sleep? Did you have any nice dreams? You know, what are your plans for your wonderful day today? No, did you check? What was your number? Did you bolus? You are not allowed to nag anymore, because this nagging, get off my back, nagging, get off my back, I hate you, you don't understand kind of stuff is ridiculous. And it doesn't get anybody anywhere, and it gets old fast, but it continues. So to break the nagging cycle, the kids have to write down all of their stuff. They have to keep it in a place. They don't have to have it tattooed to their forehead, but they can't keep it in their dirty sock drawer. It has to be somewhere where you can, 24/7, as a parent, go and check it. You're looking to see how things are going. At the end of the week, you have a 5-minute discussion and a review of the numbers. You look at the numbers and you say, oh, look, sweetheart, you didn't do 4 blood sugar things. No, she goes, I did. Look at the machine, here it is, you know, I did it. Oh, you did it, but you didn't write the numbers down. You lose an hour of your cell phone. I hate you, you're stupid. Any of you ever get that stuff? The I hate you, you're stupid stuff? Totally. And I tell the kids that if you really want to push your parents over the edge of the cliff, tell them this: I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. And the parents usually go like this: oh, sweetheart, we're so sorry. You just have to understand we're doing this for your own good, right? The kids don't have to smile in this thing. Nobody ever died from not smiling. They have from complications. They have from not taking care of themselves. What the kids do when they're at home is the skills that they take with them when they leave. You want your kids to be doing it before they leave home so that it becomes a thing that's as knee-jerk as texting their friends, as knee-jerk as breathing, as knee-jerk as putting clothes on. So the kid says, oh, I didn't ask for this, and the parents tend to go that way. I told the parents, I said, no, you should say this. Would you like to talk with us as your supervising consultants about how not to lose privileges 2 weeks from now? Because this week you have lost an hour of cell phone. No, you're stupid, you're idiotic, I hate you, you don't understand what it's like to live with this horrible disease. You know, they go to that kind of stuff. And you say, well, thank you for sharing, we'll see you next week. That's it. The less you say, the more they do. It's impossible for the kids to do more if you're more worried about it than they are. And the thing is, I say this with all the love in my heart. At the end of the day, I'm very interested in hearing what they have to say. I'm very interested in talking with them about how they feel. But that's not the same as doing it. Because these kids can talk and manage diabetes better than any diabetes expert in the world. The reason that they're not doing it is because they're not doing it, not because they don't know what to do. So to try and get a kid who's not doing it to do more by educating them more is silly. It's missing the point. It's about getting them to do it. How many of you have kids who don't have diabetes? Let's say your kid who doesn't have diabetes is 9 years old. She's standing by the door at home to sort of, you know, get to school. And you're noticing that she's got a lollygagging kind of posture as she's hanging by the door. The bus is about to show up. You say, sweetheart, would you get your butt to the corner? The bus is coming. You know? And she goes, Mom, and she doesn't have diabetes. She goes, Mom, now's as good a time as any to have that conversation with you that I wanted to have. I'm like, whoa. And she says, last week I went to school for 5 days. And I really felt like that crushed my spirit. And so I've decided that from now on, I'm only going to school 2 days a week. And today's not one of them. If you're laughing, it's the same thing with diabetes. You have to go to school. How many of you say, well, how many days would you like to go to school? Right? 2's a little too little, but how about 3? Right? I don't think any of you engage in that kind of a conversation. All I'm saying that if you can take yourself emotionally as a parent to the place that you were just at, you can do it with diabetes. All right? I think the way most kids get away with doing stuff that they're not supposed to do or being irresponsible is that parents think, oh, their lives are miserable and horrible as it is. I'd like to make it easier for them. I'm here to tell you that in some areas that's true, and in some areas it's really going to be not healthy. I think as a parent, your one thing that you think about yourself in terms of being competent at and important to do is, in terms of your job description as a parent, is to protect your child from any harm. And I think the thing with diabetes is that what ends up happening is that you realize that there are some things that you're powerless over because your child got diagnosed with this thing and you couldn't protect them from it. There was actually nothing you could do to protect them. That thing, I think, is a very deep thing. And the difference for me between families that are coping well and families that are not coping so well is not that the families who are coping well have it together all the time. They embrace that reality on some level, and they're constantly coming to terms with it, slowly, but in their own way, but they're coming to terms with it. They're open to it, and they understand it, and it's knocked them off their feet, and there are some things that you are powerless over. The next thing that you're powerless over as a parent, which I think is most painful, is the fact that you can't make it go away. How many of you would, in a flash, take your kids' diabetes from them? And mine. Of course, there's not a parent in here that wouldn't take it away from their kids. And I think that's the painful thing, is again and again and again and again, watching them take their shots, watching them poke themselves, watching them count their carbs, watching them get pissed off when you tell them, did you check? I don't think this is about fixing. This is about accepting and letting the pain in on some level and dealing with the powerlessness thing and coming to terms with it over the course of times. And for the parents who are new to the game, let me tell you something. If you're feeling lousy and you're feeling scared and upset and this is a nightmare and you think that if you go and you're hoping that when you go to bed at night you'll wake up in the morning and it'll all be gone and it'll be different, there's really nothing to do except sort of hook up with other people and walk through this thing with that. If that's how you're feeling, you're right on schedule. I promise you this, that it won't be for the rest of your lives. You will wake up one day, sometimes soon, sometimes a little bit more down the road. It varies from person to person and what you are constitutionally in terms of sensitive or not so sensitive. And you will wake up one day and you'll feel like you got it and the clouds will lift. I promise you that. But just stick it out. And don't try to make those feelings go away so much. They will inform you as to how you're going to be able to unfold into the rest of your lives and how to help your children unfold into the rest of their lives. The pain, I think, is a guide. I'm not suggesting to indulge it. I'm just suggesting to be open to it and not to try and make it go away. Thank you.